Namo Namaha Bhaktam Sarvesham Hartam Swagatam. Welcome back to the channel Sanskrit Sopanam. I hope you are doing great. I'm also good. And moving ahead in our Learning Sanskrit through Gita series, see the next three shlokas that now we are about to cover. And out of those three shlokas, two shlokas, that is the 42nd and the 43rd shloka, these two shlokas I'll take in this one video, and the 43rd shloka I will cover in the next video. So these three shlokas that we are about to cover, these are very important. And they tackle a very crucial point that again we all knowingly or unknowingly have to deal in our day-to-day life. Now, on the very first look of these shlokas that we are about to cover today, on the very first look, you will think that Krishna is outright criticizing the Karma Kandins. The Karma Kandins basically all the people who follow the Karma Kanda portion of the Vedas. In Vedas, we have spoken about this. Vedas are divided into major two sections, the Karma Kanda section and the Jnana Kanda section. The Jnana Kanda section is all the Upanishads. Okay, they deal with the knowledge. But the Karma Kanda section, the Brahmanas and the Samhitas, so these are the portion that contains all kinds of sacrifices, all kinds of rituals, all elaborative rituals and how to do them, what all benefits you get from them. So all the ritualistic part of our religion that is covered in the Karma Kanda portion of Vedas. And on the very first look, everyone will notice that Krishna is outright criticizing the Karma Kanda portion of Vedas and all the people who follow this ritualistic portion of the Vedas. But the truth is not so simple. See, we have to be very careful when we are dealing with these three shlokas. Why we have to be careful? Because see, we have to understand the context so far. In the previous shlokas, Krishna was telling us how by this Karma Yoga philosophy, we can develop a personality that has a single focus, has a single determination, a resolute character. But all the avyavasayin, all the other kind of people, they are irresolute, they are indeterminate. All their intentions, all their mental thoughts, they are always bahushakha, they are always multifold, and anantaha, they are always endless. And there he spoke about performing work with a selfish ego compared to performing work without the ego, the selfish work and the selfless work. Now the thing is, whenever we talk about this selfish work, so a mental image that all of us get is the big businessmen who are exploiting poor people, they are doing selfish work. Or the politicians who are exploiting the trust of their citizens, they are doing selfish work. Or all the different kind of peoples who are robbing others, who are cheating others, all those kind of people, they are those who are performing selfish work. But it is not that simple. Even a person, even a common person, a common householder who has never hurt anyone, who has never robbed anyone, who has no intention of cheating anyone, even such a person may be doing a lot of selfish work without him understanding it. See, a simple act of worshipping a god, a simple act of always visiting Lord Hanumana on a set day, that is Tuesday, a simple act of performing these rituals and everything, even such a work can fall under the category of selfish work. And that is what Krishna is trying to target when he criticizes the Karma Kanda portion of Vedas through these three shlokas. So there is much more to it. We'll talk about this at the end of this video. But keep this in mind, because at the very first look, a lot of people who follow these rituals, who follow all these things, they may get offended that why is Krishna so blatantly criticizing all these things? But you have to be patient about this. You have to understand the true purport of what Krishna is trying to say here, because if we understand this thing, so this division between those people who follow the rituals or those people who are very spiritual in their approach, this division, this distinction between them, it can be removed, and both of them can have a happy common ground where they can both grow and prosper. So we have to be very patient with these three shlokas. First of all, we will understand these shlokas through the lens of Sanskrit, the grammar portion of it, and at the end of it, we will talk a bit about what is the true intention of Krishna bringing this thing here, and what we can learn from these shlokas that can help us grow in our day-to-day life as a person, as a personality. So anyways, this was but a short disclaimer so that you don't judge these shlokas or the intent of these shlokas too soon. Okay, you have to be patient with this. So without wasting any more time, let's quickly dive in today's video. Okay, so these are the two shlokas that we'll cover today. Let me go through the shlokas once. Yam imam pushpitam vacham pravadantya vipaschitah vedavat rataha partha nanyadastiti vadinah. And then the next shloka goes like kamatmanah swargapara janma karma phalapradam kriya vishesha bahulam bhogaishwarya gatim prati. Okay, so this is our first shloka. Let us see what all sandhis are happening in the shlokas. So very quickly we can spot a sandhi that is happening between these two padas, pravadanti and avipaschitah. So we have a iswara followed by a aswara. And what sandhi is this? So this is the yana sandhi, due to which pravadanti avipaschitah, they combine together as pravadantya vipaschitah. Okay, this addition of yakara, this gives us a hint of yana sandhi that is happening between these two padas. Okay, and then if we move on, so we see this sanyukta pada nanyadastiti. So this sanyukta pada also is made of different padas, na, anyat, asti, iti. So what all is happening? So see, first na and anyat, they are combining together due to dirgha sandhi as nanyat. Okay, and then there is a sandhi that is happening between nanyat and asti. Basically, between this takara and this a. What sandhi is this? So this is the jashtva sandhi, due to which this takara is changing into this dakara. So na anyat asti, they are now combining together as nanyadasti. Okay, so far so good. And then ultimately this asti is combining with this iti. Basically this e is combining with this following e. So what sandhi is this? This is again the dirgha sandhi, due to which all these four padas are combining as nanyadastiti. Okay, so I hope the sandhi rules for this shloka is clear. If we move on, so now let us see the 43rd shloka also and what all sandhis are happening in this shloka also. So we can spot one sandhi with this samasa, kamatmanah. So here also in this samasa you have two different padas, kama and atmanah. And here what sandhi is happening? So it is a simple dirgha sandhi, due to which these two padas are combining together as kamatmanah into this samasa. Okay, and apart from this, we see the sandhi happening here, bhogaishwarya gatim. So here also what sandhi is happening? So this is the vriddhi sandhi, due to which bhoga and aishwarya, this is combining as bhogaishwarya. And then with this following word gatim, the sandhi is not happening, this is just simply combining together. So bhogaishwarya gatim. Again, all these sandhi rules, whatever I mentioned here, all these rules and the entire word by word breakdown of these shlokas is given in the PDF sheet that you can download from the link in the description box. That will help for your own self practice. Okay, now let us move on and start the decoding of these shlokas. Okay, so anyways, we are starting with this Kriya Pada Pravadanti that we get from this 42nd shloka. So this Kriya Pada is of course coming from the dhatu Vad dhatu. Vad dhatu means to speak. The form here is Lat Lakara, that is present tense, Prathama Purush, that is some third person, and Bahuvachanam, that is multiple third person. So in these properties, this Vad, this becomes Vadanti, that they all speak, they all say, they all utter in that sense. Okay, and as you can see in the form here, we have a Upsarga, Pra. So Pravadanti. Okay, we are just adding this upsarga, the meaning still stays the same. Pravadanti, they all speak, they all utter. So we are starting with this Kriya Pada. And immediately the question will be, Ke Pravadanti, who speak? So we have Avipaschitaha Pravadanti. So this Avipaschitaha, this comes from the Pratipadika Vipaschit. And this Vipaschit, this basically means wise. Vipaschit means someone who is wise. And if we negate it, so this becomes Avipaschit. That means unwise. Okay, so effectively this is the Pratipadika that we are using. Avipaschit, that means an unwise person. And what is the form here? Avipaschitaha. So this is the Prathama Vibhakti Bahuvachanam form. First word case plural form. Avipaschit, Avipaschitau, Avipaschitaha. So that is what you see here. Avipaschitaha Pravadanti. And again, Pravadanti, Kriyapada also was a Bahuvachanam. So we already knew that there are plural karta. That is what we see here. Prathama Vibhakti Bahuvachanam, Avipaschitaha Pravadanti. That the unwise people, they speak. The unwise people, they utter. And now if we move on, so Krishna has used multiple adjectives to describe this Avipaschitaha, these unwise people. And few of those adjectives which Krishna uses comes from this 42nd shloka and few of them come from this 43rd shloka. And that is why we are taking both the shlokas together so that we get a whole picture, the complete picture. But anyways, let us see this Visheshana, these adjectives one by one. So first is Kamatmanaha. So Kamatmanaha, this samasa have two padas. One is Kama. Kama simply means desire. Kama means desire. And another pada is Atman. Atman means self. Okay, the self nature, self. So Kama eva Atma yasya. That one whose nature, one whose self is full of desires. Kama eva Atma yasya sa we simply combine these two pratipadikas together to make this samasa, and we get this samasa kamatman. Basically, a person who is full of desire. And now we are using the Prathama Vibhakti Bahuvachanam of this Kamatman because we are describing this Avipaschitaha, these unwise people. So these are adjectives to this unwise people. So they are also going to take the Prathama Vibhakti Bahuvachanam form. All the adjectives are going to take the same Prathama Vibhakti Bahuvachanam form. So Kamatman, this in Prathama Vibhakti has the forms Kamatma, Kamatmano, Kamatmanah. That is what you see in the shloka. So Kamatmanaha, full of desires. The Pratipadika was Kamatman. And how did we get this Pratipadika? We just saw that. It is made of Kama and Atman with this Vigraha Vakya, with this understanding of the Samasa. Okay, so I hope this pada is clear. And if we'll move on, so again repeating this question, Punaschkidrisha, that what else? And now Krishna is saying Swarga Paraha. And this Samasa again has two padas, Swarga and Para. Swarga, this simply means heaven. And Para, this in the context of the shloka, this Para means the goal. This Para means the goal, the destination. And so these two padas are combined together into a samasa with this Vigraha. Swarga eva paraha yasya. That one whose end goal, one whose destination is Swarga, is heaven. That one whose intention is to obtain heaven. So such a person is called Swarga Para. Okay, that is how we get this Pratipadika. And again, since we are using this to describe this Avipaschitaha, unwise people, their characteristic. So this will also take the same form, Prathama Vibhakti Bahuvachanam as its main noun. So this Swarga Para becomes Swarga Paraha. That is what you see in the shloka. Okay, so far what we have is Kamatmanaha Swarga Paraha Avipaschitaha Pravadanti. That the unwise people who are full of desires and who are intent on obtaining heaven, they speak, they utter. Okay, so I hope all these padas so far are clear. Again, I am repeating this question because there are still more adjectives that Krishna is using for this Avipaschitaha. And now what is the adjective? So it is Veda Vada Rataha. So see, this Samasa also has three padas, Veda, Vada and Rataha. Now how can we understand this Samasa? So first you see these two padas, Veda and Vada. So these two padas can be understood with this Vigraha that Vedasya Vada iti Veda Vada. That means to say the words of Vedas. Vada means the words, whatever is said, that is Vada. So Vada is the words, and words of what? So the words of Vedas. Why? Because again, we are talking about the Karma Kanda portion of Vedas. And in the Karma Kanda portion of Vedas, we have this Brahmanas and the Samhitas that eulogize all these deities, all these gods and their powers. So Veda Vada is referring to those eulogizing words of Vedas that deal with this section, the invocation of gods and goddesses, their powers, their worship, and the rituals and sacrifices that we can perform to please them so as to get a benefit, so as to get some gain as a karma phala. And then further we can understand as Vedavadeshu Rataha, Saha Vedavada Rataha. See, Rataha is someone who is deeply engrossed. Rataha is someone who takes pleasure in something. That is this Rataha. That with this Pratipadika Vedavada Rata, we are basically saying someone who is engrossed in the eulogizing words of Vedas. Someone who takes pleasure in these words of Vedas, in these sections of this Karmakanda section of Vedas. Okay, so I hope this entire Samasa is clear. That Vedasya Vada iti Vedavada, the words of Vedas, and Vedavadeshu Rataha, one who is engrossed in the words of Vedas, that person is called as Vedavada Rata. That is what we are using in the shloka. And since we are using this Pratipadika again to describe this Avipaschitaha, the unwise people, so we are using the Prathama Vibhakti Bahuvachanam form, Vedavada Rataha. That is what you see in the shloka. And see, this is the reason I gave that short disclaimer before starting this video, that as soon as someone read this Vedavad Rataha, and as soon as someone finds out that Krishna is using this as an adjective for unwise people, that someone who is engrossed in the Karmakanda portion, someone who is engrossed in the eulogizing words of Vedas, he is an unwise people. How so? So, to avoid this misunderstanding, you have to understand this entire shloka in the proper context, and that is why I gave the disclaimer that don't judge the book too soon. Okay, first be patient, understand these words, their literal meaning, and then we can understand the proper contextual meaning, what Krishna is trying to imply here. Okay, so Vedavad Rataha, even though this means someone who takes pleasure in that portion of Vedas, but this does not apply to outright everyone. No, you have to understand the proper use of this word, which will become clear when we complete the shlokas, and also when at the end of the video we talk about it a bit. Okay, so anyways, these are the words so far. If we move on, so we have one last Visheshana that Krishna uses for Avipaschitaha, the unwise people. The pada is Vadinaha. And vadinaha, this comes from the pratipadika vadin. And vadin, this means someone who is saying. Okay, someone who is saying something, someone who keeps on saying something. That is this vadin. And again, we are using the Prathama Vibhakti Bahuvachanam of this pratipadika also. So vadinaha, that all these unwise people who are saying or who keep saying. And what do they keep saying? So that is this na anyat asti iti. See, whenever we use this iti is basically pointing to some statement that was made before. So vadina, all the people who keep saying. And what do they keep saying? So it is this na anyat asti, that there is nothing else. So anyat, this basically means something else. And na anyat, nothing else in that sense. So na anyat asti, there is nothing else. This is what they keep saying. So now you may connect this particular Visheshana with the previous one. That when he says that all those people who take pleasure in the Karmakanda section of Vedas, the same people who keep on saying Nanyat Asti, the same people who also keep on saying there is nothing else. Basically, they keep their sole focus on the Karmakand section of Vedas, and they say beyond this Karmakand portion, beyond these rituals, these sacrifices, all these elaborative rituals that are given in Vedas, there is Nanyat Asti, there is nothing else. So all these kind of people, they are labeled as avipaschitaha, the unwise people. So we can start to see the proper context that is required to understand these shlokas. But anyways, all these padas so far, I hope they are clear. And now our question is kam pravadanti. That okay, avipaschitaha pravadanti, that the unwise people, they speak, the unwise people, they utter. But kam pravadanti, what do they utter? And Krishna says, avipaschitaha vacham pravadanti. Vacham, this basically means speech. See, this vacham, it may not look like, but this comes from the chakarant pratipadika vach. And this chakarant pratipadika vach, this is the strilingam. This is a feminine gender pratipadika. So again, not a lot of words that end with this chakara, but since this is one instance and this is a very common word that we use in Sanskrit, so just take a mental note of this thing, that this vach is a chakarant pratipadika and it is the strilingam pratipadika. Okay, from this pratipadika only you get the word vak. This vak is the prathama vibhakti ekvachanam form of this vach. Okay, this vacham here is of course the dvitiya vibhakti ekvachanam. Why dvitiya vibhakti? Because this is the karma of this kriya. That the unwise people, they speak these words, vacha, they utter this speech. And now see, just like Krishna described this avipaschitaha with different adjectives, in the same way Krishna is going to describe this vacham, this speech also with different adjectives. Basically, he is going to tell us that what kind of speech or what kind of words these unwise people, they speak. Okay, so I'm asking this question, kidrisham vacham, and the first response is pushpitam vacham bravadanti. Pushpitam. This comes from the pratipadika pushpita. And this pushpita, this simply means flowery. Okay, flowery, decorative in that sense. Now we usually say no, that these politicians, they use these flowery speech, these flowery words to attract the audience. So that is what is this pushpita. And Krishna is saying, avipaschitaha pushpitam vacham pravadanti. That these unwise people, they speak, they utter this flowery speech. Okay, since this pushpita is describing this vacham, so this is also taking the same dvitiya vibhakti and ekvachanam form. So pushpita becomes pushpitam. Why pushpitam? Because vacha, we know this was the strilingam, feminine gender pratipadika. So the correct form is pushpita, and then we use the dvitiya vibhakti. So pushpitam. That is what you see in the shloka. Okay, so I hope this pada, this is clear, and so far all the padas we have covered, that is clear. And now moving on, I'm again asking this question, punaschikidrisham. And now Krishna is saying, janma karma phal pradam vacham. So see, this samasa is very easy to understand. Why? Because pradam, here the main pratipadika is prada. And prada is one who bestows. Okay, so something that is giving, something that is bestowing. So the vacham, the speech, that is prada, that is bestowing what? So karma phala. And karma phala is the reward of actions. Karma is actions, karma phala, the reward of actions. Now, karma phala, very common Hindi word also that we use. Ki iska karma phala milega, iska parinam kya hoga, in that sense. So bestowing, reward of actions. And what is that reward? So janma. Janma basically means the next birth. And of course, if we are performing some sacrifice, if we are performing some ritual, we are of course going to ask for a noble next birth. Okay, a next birth that is of course greater and better, more noble than the current birth we have. So with this, Krishna is basically saying that these unwise people, they utter such flowery speech that promises the next birth, a noble next birth, as the reward of actions, as the karma phala of anyone who is performing a certain action. So again, no, just as these politicians, they use this flowery speech to promise so many things to a lot of us. Same thing Krishna is trying, sort of addressing here, that these unwise people also, they use this flowery speech to make promises of a noble next birth as the karma phala, as the reward of actions. Okay, so that is what we understand with this samasa. Okay, and if we move on, so yet another thing that Krishna is telling us, and that is kriya vishesha bahulam. So see, in this samasa, this bahula basically means many. Bahula, the literal meaning of bahula is many, and many basically in the sense of something that is full of, or something that is exuberant with something else. So that is this bahula. And exuberant with what? So exuberant with kriya vishesha. Kriya is again action, vishesha, so specific actions. So Krishna is saying these unwise people, they utter vacham, they utter speech, which is kriya vishesha bahulam, which is exuberant, which is full with various specific actions. And again, no unnecessary offense has to be taken that Krishna is targeting the ritualistic process of these sacrifices, of these pujas, of these yajnas. No, he's not targeting the ritualistic process of these things. He is targeting the clever way these unwise people, they use speech, they use words, and the clever way they incorporate all these tiny details, a lot of specific details, so as to overwhelm the listener, so as to overwhelm the person to whom they are addressing that. And lastly, Krishna tells the reason as to why they use such speech, as to why they utter such things, and that is this bhogaishwarya gatim prati. See, prati, this is a avya, this is the indeclinable, and prati means towards that. Okay, and whenever we use any other word with this prati, so we are basically saying that this is what, this is towards which the person is working. So, bhogaishwarya gatim prati, that all these words, all these speeches that are made by these unwise people, they are directed towards the attainment of this pleasure and lordship in this life or in the next life. Okay, that is the meaning. Bhoga, again, this means pleasure. Aishwarya, this means that samriddhi, that lordship, that swamitva. And gati is used in the sense of destination also. So towards this, prati is towards this. So towards this destination, basically for the attainment of pleasure and lordship. Bhoga Aishwarya gatim prati. Okay, so I hope all these padas, they are clear. These two shlokas together, they have a lot of different padas, I understand. But now let us see both of these shlokas along with Anvaya and Anuvada. So here in these two shlokas, Krishna is saying Partha, that is O Partha, that is O Arjuna, Avipaschitaha, the unwise people. And then he goes on to describe these unwise people, that who specifically he is talking about. So O Partha, the unwise people who are Kamatmanaha, who are full of desires, and Swargaparaha, with their intent set on obtaining heaven, and who are Vedavad Rataha, and who take immense pleasure in the eulogizing words of Vedas, and who are Vadinaha, that who are always saying such things as Na Anyatasti iti, that who are always saying such things as there is nothing else. So such kind of unwise people, what do? They pravadanti, they utter. And what do they utter? So they utter imam pushpitam vacham, that they utter this flowery speech. And what kind of flowery speech? So yam janma karma phalpradam, that which promises a noble next birth as the reward of actions, and which is kriya vishesh bahulam, which is exuberant, which is full with various specific actions. For what? For bhoga aishwarya gatim prati, for the attainment of pleasures and lordship. Okay, so I understand a lot of words. Let me just read this English translation. O Partha, the unwise people who are full of desires with their intent set on obtaining heaven, who take immense pleasure in the eulogizing words of Vedas, and who are always saying such things as there is nothing else. They utter this flowery speech which promises a noble next birth as the reward of actions, which is exuberant with various specific actions for the attainment of pleasures and lordship. And with this, we can clearly see that Krishna is directly targeting the Karma Kanda. He is directly criticizing those people who are involved in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas. Basically, all those people who are involved in the ritualistic acts of yajna, of worship, of the ceremonies, of all the ritualistic acts that are prescribed to us by the Vedas, and that we still perform in a certain level in our day-to-day household ceremonies and activities and festivals. Okay, and now the question is, why will the Ishvara himself bash one section of Vedas while defending the other one? Why will he do this, because for Ishvara, this entire Vedas is the wisdom of Ishvara, right? Why will we select one over other? So that is the mistake that a lot of us can make when we superficially read these shlokas. That Krishna is outright bashing all the karma kandas. He is outright bashing the karma kanda portion of the Vedas, and basically he's saying that that portion of Vedas is not useful. No, he's not saying that, because a hint that we can get, a doorway that we can get in proper understanding of the shloka comes from this statement within the shloka, that na anya titi vadinaha, that all those people who keep on saying that there is nothing else. And that is what Krishna is trying to target here, that he's targeting all those people who have who are taking this karma kand portion of the Vedas, these rituals of the Vedas, and isolating them from the spiritual knowledge of the Vedas. That they have isolated this teaching, they have isolated this section, karma kanda section, from the jnana kanda section, and now the entire focus is only on these ritualistic acts. So this is whom Krishna is really targeting. And as to who is the culprit here, is the culprit only the priest, the panditas who perform our rituals, our ceremonies for us? No, they are not the sole culprits. Each one of us is the culprit. See, you can take an example of any common Indian household, a family which is religious. In a religious family, all these ceremonies, say you purchased a new house, so the Graha Pravesha ceremony, then a child comes of a age, so the Yajnopavita ceremony, the Janev ceremony, then the marriage ceremonies, then all the festivals, all the small festivals, the rituals, they keep on happening. All these rituals, all these things are performed with zeal and with sincerity. That is okay, that is fine. But say, again, this is a common pattern that we all can notice and acknowledge in our households, that say my mother is very religious. Now she may be very religious, but she won't agree with someone like Osho. She won't agree with the teachings of Osho, because when she will hear someone like Osho, all she's going to hear is that person is outright bashing all these rituals. How can he bash all these rituals? Are these rituals waste? No, that person is a stupid, and they directly reject someone like Osho. Why did he reject them? Because he was a person who asked you for self-enquiry. But that self-enquiry, that spiritual thing, that is completely isolated from these rituals. We may be we may be performing all the rituals. We may be the person who, after taking a bath, the first thing we do is perform puja. We may be a person who never miss to go to Lord Hanuman on a Tuesday, or to worship Sai Bhagwan on a Thursday. We may be such kind of person. But when a spiritual leader, when a spiritual guru asks us for a self-enquiry, and he shows us that there is so much to improve in yourself, that is what makes a religious person uncomfortable. That all this while I thought that I was good, I was already good. All this while I thought that I was doing good. I never deliberately hurt anyone. I never deliberately harm anyone, cheat anyone. And I do all these ritualistic things with so much enthusiasm and zeal and sincerity. And now there is one person who is saying there is so much to improve within you. You have to control your mind, you have to control this Atman Brahman, what all nonsense he's talking about. The spiritual talks make a religious person very uncomfortable. And this is a common pattern that you can see. Mostly our parents, if they are religious, they are not going to agree with someone like Osho. They are not going to agree to them. But the same problem happens in the reverse also. Say a person like me, a young person like me, they already have a distaste for these rituals, because for us they are uncool. We are too cool for these rituals. So we obviously find another solace in these spiritual teachings. And the moment we start to read these spiritual teachings, the moment we start to read a darshan like, say, Advaita Darshan, or we start to hear someone like Kabir, someone like Osho, somehow we develop this distaste towards all the rituals. Somehow we start to feel that we are already above these rituals, and we start to make the mockery of these rituals. We start to pity those who are following these rituals. We think that we are already above them. That, see, those poor people still trapped in all these rituals and all this worship, all this nonsense. No, leave that. Everything is Brahman. All this is Brahman. So that is the problem that spiritual people also face, that they develop complete distaste for these rituals. So what they do is they isolate the Jnana Kanda from the Karma Kanda. And with this, they are committing the same exact mistake as the Karma Kandans of this verse is making. That Karma Kandans, they have isolated all these ritualistic portions from the spiritual Jnana Kanda. But the Jnana Kandans also, they somehow manage to isolate all the rituals also from the Jnana Kanda. And that is why they develop this air of superiority over someone who is a ritualistic person. That what nonsense he is doing. But that is also wrong, because both of them has to go hand in hand, because that is the reason both of them are in the Vedas. Otherwise, if one section of Vedas was sufficient for self realization, then the other section won't be there. No, there is a merit to both the sections, and those sections has to go hand in hand. That is what we have to understand through this shloka, that neither we have to isolate the rituals from the spiritual aspect, nor we have to isolate the spiritual knowledge from the ritual aspect. See, all those who have just started to read Osho, and they have this air within them, though, that all these rituals, they are beneath me. Now, a simple question to them: have you already realized Brahman? Are you able to see Brahman in all the creations? Are you able to see the same Atman flowing in everyone? Are you able to do that? No. Have you controlled your mind? No. You are still not there. Still, if a person brings a pizza in front of you, you won't be able to stop yourself from eating a pizza, let alone controlling your mind. So you don't have any control whatsoever, but the words of Osho you take and you memorize them and you start to throw them outwards, that everything is Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. Aham Shivom, I am Shiva. Okay, that is fine. But don't think that you're already there. It is still just an intellectual concept in your mind. It is still not the living reality for you. And until it becomes a living reality for you, you need the discipline that these rituals bring in the life. These rituals that are performed, that are given to us in the Vedas, they have immense power to make us, to bring our life and bring discipline to our life, and to purify our body, to purify our mind, to purify our thoughts. Only when our body, our mind, our thoughts, they are purified, then only we can even start to grasp these spiritual concepts. So these rituals are very necessary for a spiritual person. But same thing goes for the ritualistic person also. That if you're only focused on how to perform this act, this yajna, this worship, only the ritualistic part of it, without ever doing this self-inquiry within you, then what's the point? What is the use? Okay, you are going to get good samriddhi. Okay, you are going to get all the wealth in the world. But still, that is in this world. The highest of the things that you can ask God, that is still going to be a materialistic goal. That is still going to be yet another goal. Just as a goal of a new car, a goal of a new job, a goal of a new house. Then what is the point? You are still in that loop, and you are forever going to be stuck in that loop if you don't combine this ritualistic, this karma kanda with the jnana kanda, with the proper self-knowledge, the self-inquiry. So both these wings has to go hand in hand. But Krishna is now targeting the karma kanda portion, the karma kandins. Why? Because that is the reality of this world still. That so much focus is given on the religious acts, the ritualistic acts, but so little of focus is given on the self-inquiry, self-understanding. If only they can be both married together. See, someone who performs someone who perform rituals, they look down upon these spiritual leaders as obnoxious or out of their mind. And someone who has just started in a spiritual journey, they start to look down upon all these people who perform these rituals. Both of them are wrong. And the classic example we have is someone like Adi Shankaracharya. Adi Shankaracharya was the greatest spiritual person ever walked on this earth. Now, he was the flag bearer of Advaita Vedanta philosophy, the highest philosophy in the self-inquiry. And he established so many temples. He reinstated worship in so many temples, the temples of Badrinatha, Kedarnatha, Jagannath Puri. He created so many stotrams. He fought with the unnecessary animal sacrifices and all these things, and established a sattvic way of worship of all these goddesses, of all these gods. Why was he doing it? Now, he was a great person. He was already established in that reality, that truth, that Brahman. Why was he doing all this? Now, he was doing all this to show us that exactly both these things have to be married together. You can't isolate one section of Vedas and another. You cannot fight over that this section is greater than that section. No, you have to understand that there is a way. You have to understand that there is a path that has been given to us. All these rituals, they are necessary to purify us. These rituals are necessary to purify our thoughts, our body, to bring discipline in our life. And then only we will be able to dive deeper into the subtle aspects of self-inquiry, self-knowledge. So these rituals, they are not the goal, they are the means. But through these means alone, you will be able to reach that goal. So that is the point he was trying to show us. But again, either we are a karma kandi or we are a jnana kandi, but there is still a big fracture between both of them. That fracture was there. If Krishna is pointing out in this shloka, so that fracture was there 7,000 years ago also, where the karma kanda that was so heavy, that fracture is still there. So this is essentially what we should understand from these shlokas, that we have to stop picking sides. We have to stop isolating the rituals from spirituality and the spirituality from the rituals. We have to stop isolating them. These things go hand in hand. The ritualistic person, all the karma kandins, they have to understand that these rituals, these are the means for that goal. These are not the goal, these are the means to that goal. And the spiritual person has to understand that these rituals are the very best way for us to be able to become eligible for that goal. Because rituals is what purifies us, rituals is what brings discipline in our life. So it cannot be ignored, nor can it be looked down upon. That is the gravest mistake the spiritual persons, they start to do, that they start to look down upon these rituals. No, they can't be looked down upon. If someone is doing rituals in a superficial way, now teach them the right way to do it. No, bring that spiritual element in that ritual. No, bring that, change that, what is hurting you so much, but don't outright reject that. And same thing goes for the ritualistic person also. That okay, that is okay, that you are very observant in your duties, in your rituals, everything. But then you at some point have to start this spiritual self-inquiry also. Otherwise, you are just stuck in a loop. You are just stuck in a loop, life after life after life. It is not going to do us any good if we are just stuck on that ritualistic portion. It doesn't matter if you reach heaven or beyond, doesn't matter. Still in that loop, still in that samsara. So that self-inquiry has to start. So anyways, I hope that these verses and the true intent, the true meaning behind these verses can be understood, and the true meaning can be expanded and applied in today's time also. These things are said 7,000 years before. They are timeless because Bhagavad Gita is timeless. It applies in every day and age. But how we have to understand and apply this in today's day and time, we have to understand this also. So a lot of times the target can be at a certain point, but we can expand it and we can understand the true meaning behind these shlokas, that it's not just the karma kandins that Shri Krishna is targeting here. No, it is the jnana kandins also who are also straying in a wrong way. So he's targeting them also because he's trying to show the correct way, the correct path. That is what Krishna does. No, he shows us the proper path. He's the true guru, he's the true teacher. So that is what we have to aim, strive in understanding. I hope this was fun, something new. I hope all the padas there were clear. All these padas, everything, the full breakdown is in the PDF sheet that you can download from the link in the description box. In that same tone, Krishna is going to conclude in the next shloka. What is that? We'll see in the next video. I'll take break now. I'll meet you with another video, another shloka. Until then, stay awesome, stay happy, keep learning Sanskrit. Vayam punah milamaha. Dhanyavad.